Hi, I'm Jim Helsinger, Artistic Director here at Orlando Shakes, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all to our live streamed Q&A with our creative team for Poe, Deep Into That Darkness Peering. Feel free to leave your questions in the chat about the production in the comments section, and we'll get to answering all of those live a little bit later as we're moving along. So welcome, we're thrilled to have you. This fantastic, deliciously dark production explores the inner life of one of America's greatest poets and most iconic, Edgar Allan Poe, and just in time for Halloween. This show is available today, right now, as video on demand experience, now through November 1st. So you have about 2 weeks, a week and a half, to come enjoy beautiful Halloween stories with Edgar Allan Poe. I want to introduce some of our creative team to you. So let's go to Cynthia White, our director. And Cynthia, say hi and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I directed this wonderful production, not streaming live event, film, I guess, of Poe, which started out as a going to be a stage experience in the Goldman Theater. So it's been a fascinating process going from one media to another, from one stage to another, to streaming live to a film. And it's been great.
Huge pivot for us. Originally, this was planned to be live in the Goldman, and well, the pandemic said no to that, our original plan. And so it's become a film. So let's talk to the playwright, Mark Rector, if you can come join us. Hello to Chicago. Welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm an actor, playwright, fight choreographer, stage combatant with a long history of working in theater in Orlando. And I was the author of this play and performed the role in the inaugural production. My day job is I'm a market development executive for Lloyd's of London.
Hence the suit, which looks fabulous, by the way. You look dapper as always. Mark and I met in 1992 or 3, performing on the Lake Eola stage for Romeo and Juliet and
Midsummer Night's Dream.
Midsummer Night's Dream. Huh. And let's meet our actor, Stephen Lane. Tell us about yourself.
Hi, everybody. Hey. I'm Stephen Lane, and I played Poe in this massive cast of the show. Actually, there's just one actor, and it's just me, all Stephen, all the time. But I was super honored to play one of America's geniuses and really get to know the man and the creativity and the genius behind this play. So it's been an honor.
And Stephen, you've been with our company a long time. Was Into the Woods your first production with us? Am I right?
It was. Yeah.
And then what for you? What would have been some highlights of your career with us here at Orlando Shakes?
Well, Shakes has been very important to me in my career. I live in Orlando, and at a certain point, I decided that I wanted to stay at home and not travel anymore because I spent about 10 years doing regional theater, and so Shakes, just 30 minutes from my house, with this amazing theater with incredible production values and one of the most respectful professional staffs that I've ever had the pleasure of working with. I've done about a play a season for the past 6 or 7 seasons, I think. Dancing Lessons was my first show with Cynthia, and it was my second two-hander. But I think that was the most challenging play up until this one.
This is 2 people when you can have only one.
Exactly. Let's just get rid of the fat. Just cut off the fat. But Nicholas Nickleby, we did Life and Adventure. That's actually what brought me back to Shakes after a hiatus of about 4 or 5 years, or maybe longer. When Orlando Shakespeare Theater did my favorite play of all time, which is The Life and Adventures of Nicholas Nickleby. I thought I'd never get to see it live, let alone be in it. And here it was in my backyard, and I got to play in it, and it was a dream come true. I'm not exaggerating either. So I'm so grateful to Shakes.
It was a dream for me to be even involved with myself. I thought the same thing of, I'm going to be lucky if I'm ever involved in this, and we got to do it on our own stage, which was really great. Moving back into Poe, so Mark, what was going back to the beginning? What was the genesis? Where did the idea for the play and starting to get it together? Where did it all come from?
Well, I was in Orlando to stage manage the Orlando Shake's first one-man show, a little known play called The Journal of Jonathan Harker, with the talented young actor named Jim Helsinger in the lead role. We were doing it in the Arts Mall in Winter Park because the Lounge Center was still being renovated. So over 2.5 weeks, we converted a former menswear store into a 60-seat black box theater and did the show. And it was awesome. It was great. And everybody loved it. So I think it was after the final tech, we were in a swimming pool. You were there. Right. The director, Michael Carlton, was there. Mark Collins, who built the set, was there. I think Mark Brown was there. And somebody said, what are we going to do next? And I said, Poe. And Jim said, write it. So we did.
And that started a tradition for us of one-person shows that we've done to this day. Cynthia just directed another one-person show, Becoming Dr. Ruth, that was in this season. We've done Dracula a number of times, Frankenstein, Poe, The Island of Dr. Moreau. There's been quite a few. I think the one-man show is one of the purest forms of theater to me. To watch an actor on his own transform story to story, character to character is to me just part of the heart of what theater is. It's play, it's getting on stage and pretending like we did when we were 5. I see a picture coming up, or not a picture, a question. Noelle says, what was something new you'd never known about Poe that you learned from writing, directing, or acting in the play?
Well, the amount of suffering he endured. He lost his mother, his adoptive mother, his brother, and his wife, all from tuberculosis, from the same disease. And just a tremendous amount of suffering. And of course, we know the cliche that with great suffering, and you combine that with the genius, then you're going to get amazing work out of them. But just the suffering that this man went through, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Hi, Noelle.
I think that there's a section in the play where he's talking about beautiful women and what art is. What's that? I'm trying to remember. I'm paraphrasing very much about the greatest form of art is sadness, and
the greatest expression of beauty.
That's it.
Is sadness. The supreme expression of beauty is sadness. And so if you combine poetry with extreme beauty, it's the most poetical thing that you can do.
Is the death of a beautiful woman, which is something he
the death of a beautiful woman
experienced over and over again, which is why it just keeps coming back. So I think one of hopefully the revelations or joys of watching the play is many of us may very well know Annabel Lee as a poem. We've heard it before, but it's so intensely personal to his own life and his own wife, which one of the things I really enjoy about this, Mark, is the way Annabel Lee blends between the poem and him talking about his life. The poem and it just does this back and forth thing that I think is really super fun and dramatic and informative. Because as an audience, we often don't know why it came to be what it is. It's always interesting to ask the poet, why did you do what you did? Where was the inspiration from that? And I think this play kind of brings a lot of that around, and his fascination with death and people being inside of the coffin and they can't get out is true to his real life.
He probably didn't have access to any kind of therapy, and he was trying to work it out. He was trying to work out his broken heart through his work, through his poetry and his stories. I mean, there's a lot of a recurring theme, like Jim said, over and over and over again, him trying to deal with his grief.
Mark, were you starting to say, that section of going back and forth? Go ahead, or whatever you were having.
Well, when I was researching the play, I was reading everything I could get my hands on about what he wrote. his letters, his poetry, which a lot of people don't know his poetry very well, which is awesome. And reading biographies about his life, trying to figure out, how we were going to approach telling a story, doing all this. And it became so clear early on, once I learned about the events of his life. And as you say, how his writing is so very, very personal. Being able to tease out those strings that connect the things that he wrote about the things that happened in his life, his tragedies, his successes, and that's what really makes the whole play work as a show.
We have another question up from somebody whose last name is also Rector.
I don't know who this is.
It says, that's a lot of guys named Mark in a pool. That's true. What was your favorite part of the play, Mr. Rector?
It's hard to pick any one thing. It's I've performed the play, and Stephen can attest to that. It's kind of a devastating experience to perform, but it's also exhilarating. The stories are so great. I guess I would say, of everything, I really enjoyed performing the bells quite a lot. It's just so onomatopoeic. It's just great to talk. And I really kind of dug the black cat. It's dark.
It's so twisted. It's so freaking
so twisted. It's
I
funny
love
too.
the black cat too. I love the black cat too because it starts off so unassuming.
Yeah.
It's just a really regular guy, an average guy telling you a little bit about himself. And then it devolves into the most horrific thing that anyone can experience. And I really like that he took me off guard when I first read it. I thought, wait, what just happened?
Yeah.
So yeah, the black cat is.
I love about that, which is your playwriting, Mark, is so often we don't know we're in a story yet. We don't know we're in the poem until you've gone a few lines into it. We think Poe's talking to us, and then we go, oh, Poe's playing a character, and I see the black cat. So how did that idea of that blend come about?
Well, we wanted it to be as much Poe as possible. The show is 99.9% Poe, his actual words that he wrote somewhere. And we did want it to sort of seamlessly flow from story to story as you take a tour of his life without it being, my name is Edgar Allan Poe and this is my life. So it was sort of organic. We just found these little sort of bridges that made it happen so nicely. The talking about his father and how much he hated him just leads flawlessly into the Cask of Amontillado, and it's that way throughout the whole play.
So for those people that are going to be viewing it, so there's so much dialogue where the Poe is talking to the people in the room that he's entered, and I think it would be easy for them to think that that's things that you wrote, Mark, as opposed to no. These are Poe's actual own words to people that were letters. I think it's a wizardly way of no. This is Poe actually talking to Mr. Allen, his stepfather, talking to Muddy, his wife's mother, his aunt. Thank you. And it segues. So for those people that are interested, are going to be seeing it. This is not a lecture. This is not a series of poems.
No.
This is Poe running into the room, scared out of his life, being chased by somebody, asking you, the audience, for a little solace and rest. And it's got a timetable and it's moving along. Cynthia, do you want
Mark, can you say anything about how you came up with that framework?
Yeah, well, so I'd never written a play before. Jim put me in a room with Mark Brown after I'd done a lot of the research, and we hammered out the framing device. One of the first stories of Poe's that as a kid I remember reading was The Gold Bug. And part of the story is him solving a cryptogram, a code, breaking a code. And then I found out that he he did this a lot in his journalism and the magazines that he edited, and was famous for being able to break a code. So we were talking about that. We thought, well, let's make that the thing that he has to do. He has to solve this code, and we use the code throughout the play in interesting ways. Yeah.
We have a question from our chat audience. How do you go about memorizing a whole one-person play?
I have no idea.
And you didn't have to.
Well, or
you did, yeah.
Yes and no. No, I know what you mean, Cynthia. It's funny. I actually got cast, got the script, and then promptly told Cynthia I couldn't do it.
Did you know that, Jim?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, he was like, I can't memorize all these lines.
I started to read it and memorize it. I said, oh my gosh, I won't be ready in time. And Cynthia said, oh, Stephen, let's talk you off the ledge. So she talked me down. She said, you can do this. And the funny thing is that I was furloughed from my full-time job, so I didn't have a job. And that became my job. Every day I'd wake up. It gave structure to my life. I would wake up, and it was usually 2 or 3 different chunks of the day that I would memorize. And I'm not a quick memorizer. So it was a lot of grunt work. It was a bit of a slog at first, but then there's it was just the tough work that you would expect that goes into it. But there's a certain turning point that happens in my memorization process where I know enough of it that the joy and the creativity and the ideas and my heart just starts to pound. And so I knew that part of the process was coming. And once that happens, then I'm pretty golden, because I don't have to push myself to memorize. It just happens.
Yeah.
It took me, I worked on it for at least 5 weeks.
So Stephen did memorize the whole play, but there was this interesting, I want to kind of get a little into the filming of it. There was, I think, and you can tell me more specifically, Stephen, a little bit of an advantage and a disadvantage to it being a film. So when we filmed it, we didn't do the whole play in one take. We filmed it in about 5-7 minute chunks, a story, a poem, and then move to the next. So I think, Stephen, you were not on any given day. You didn't have to hold all the text in your brain, just the text for today. So that's the plus. But on the negative side, when we're performing live, as Mark did when it first opened, you have the energy of the audience there with you, and you have a little black camera lens that you have to imagine that person's there. Plus you have me saying, don't miss your mark on the floor or you'll be out of focus. And Cynthia going, could you do this direction like this? And so what's it like to hold that many things in your mind in a film, which we don't really have to do in stage?
Such a good question. It was I've done a little bit of film and TV, and but nothing that required this much of the performer. Nothing that was so wordy, so text driven, as opposed to a stare, So I knew what it would require of me in order to have a level of comfort, and I was able to get to that point before we started the production. But Jim's right that, so it was them being really patient with me and me learning a new skill of, because when you do a play and you're in rehearsal for 3 weeks or a month, it just gets inside of you, and you just it becomes a part of you, and you don't have to think anymore. And I didn't have that luxury with this. The luxury I did have is that I had those bite-sized chunks that Jim was talking about. So the night before, I would only focus on those sections,
right,
and really just try to solidify the choices we had talked about, Cynthia's direction, so that I had all I had to think about was, don't go out of the frame, don't move too quickly. The things that I could only practice in the moment. I tried to reserve those pockets of my brain for those sections on the day.
And, things that our audience may not be thinking about in a film. if I stand up too quick, the camera can't follow me up. So we were constantly practicing how he sits down, how he stands up. Is he in focus? What happens when he goes behind the chair? For those people watching it, I think there's a pretty interesting story of the filming, because this would normally be a stage production as an actors equity production. But due to the pandemic, we are not allowed to be in our theater. The union won't give us a contract. What they would give us a contract to do was to film in the actor's home with no one else that was on our team there. So there was no risk of Stephen being infected by COVID from anybody but his own family, which he's already there. So what we did was, and I think we have a couple photos that we can show, we put in a 3-camera little thing in, Stephen, and this is your sister's house, which is next door to yours, right?
Correct. Yes.
In their living room, and these are their shelves, our props on the shelves, but their shelves. And we built sort of just a little 12 by 12 camera studio. And then from there, we were all, Cynthia and I and the director of sound and et cetera, we're all on Zoom watching Stephen through the camera lens. So we could, there we are looking through the camera lens, seeing him. So this was chunk by, we rehearsed for 1 week when Cynthia and Stephen were just working on the blocking and the moments and the research. Then we filmed for 2 weeks. Then we took a week to edit the whole thing. And we finished editing post-production this morning at 10 a.m. And Christian, who's behind the scenes right now making all this work, was, I think, up all night, as was the director of lighting, Rob Seiler, getting this so you could see it. It's been a heck of a journey of all these files going up to Dropbox and then back down, and in Premiere and in After Effects, which are all software to use to try to get it to you. So if you never thought you could do a film in your own home, well, I guess you can.
And the amount of After Effects that you film it, and it's just Stephen walking around the living room. Well, I mean, he's in costume and everything, he's in character, but how we got to the catacombs, et cetera, to some of the, there it is darkened. Oh, that's the same living room. You recognize it, I'm sure.
Same living room and same lights. So audience, as you're looking at, this is a moment from Castle of Amontillado, and seeing that, this room is very brightly lit, and there's nothing but bookcases behind him. All this was done in post-production later, afterwards. Everything that you see here. This is a very brightly lit room that did not change the whole time, but now has all these different effects in it, which is really super fun.
I think one of the things that really excites me about having got to do this is getting to play with my colleagues in this time when we can't be in the theater.
Yeah. And
we're all doing things that we know. Well, this is interesting. That question's for me, and I might be answering it before I heard the question. The experience of directing for film is something I haven't done before, and how it differs exactly. I mean, work with the actor is the same, except suddenly I'm sitting in my space across town from where Stephen is, and they're cameramen who are kind of talking crosswise across in front of, between Stephen and me, trying to talk and all of that. But that whole, that we're not doing a multi-million-dollar film here, but we're playing with the tools that are suddenly available to us as theater artists in this strange time. And we're striving mightily and having fun, just trying to share a good story with an audience, with our audience, and the appreciation that I can feel coming from people that, oh, good, some entertainment. My friends are going to put on a show for me. It really is a little bit of that out in the backyard. Put a curtain and do a play. There's a little bit of that. It's got some incredible technical stuff. Thank you to our wonderful designers and cinematographer. And we've got wonderful words from Poe, and we get to play with it in a different way. That's a treat.
Yeah, I think also this pandemic time is very challenging, and we have to find a way for art to still have its life, to still be out there. And so we're finding every way we can do that, from Zoom readings of Playfest. Our new Play Festival is going incredibly well, and more people are now seeing that online than ever come to our theater to see our new play readings. So, and you can be in California or New York or Chicago or Tokyo and watch it.
No. Sydney, Australia. One of our actors this week is phoning in from Sydney, Australia.
So that, is, we're getting reach. No, you can't come and see it live, which we want to give to you. Absolutely. But if you can't be live and you're in Chicago, Mark, or in Sydney, Australia, you can still watch this play. So there's challenge, but there's also opportunity. And I love the fact that people that have loved Orlando Shakes for 30 years can see this no matter where they now are in the world for Halloween. So that's pretty fun. We're kind of running out of our time. Any closing thoughts on doing this process or what it's been like or something from each of you? Let me go to you, Stephen Lane. Just anything you didn't get a chance to say.
It just gave me I knew who Poe was, and I had read The Telltale Heart and that sort of thing, but I didn't know what a genius he was. I'm so proud that America, created him, and that he comes from, because he's a real gift. His poetry, The Raven, is so moving. It is so moving, and it's still intricate. It seems accessible, and it is accessible, but then at the same time, you see the craft that goes into it. So that was a real, not surprise, a pleasant revelation to me. Was just, oh, this is what people have been talking about, about Poe my whole life. And I got to experience that in a really intimate way. And I feel the gift.
Great. Mark Rector, working on the play, bringing it to life. Closing thoughts?
I'm so excited to see it, and to see another actor do it. And I'm thrilled. And I'm just so grateful to you, Jim, and to Orlando Shakes, and you, Stephen and Cynthia, for bringing this to life. I think it's going to be extraordinary, and I just can't wait.
Thank you. Cynthia?
I think I said it in my last comment. The journey, and the complexity of Poe. I was first struck by how almost bipolar he seemed to be. The way in one letter he could be begging his dad for money and then turn around and tell his dad all the awful things his dad had done to him. And I would think, you're not going to get any money that way, buddy. But just the person who was very sincere in both directions, and then getting to play with Stephen, playing both sides of that character.
Yeah, I think for me, Stephen, you brought up his poetry, and I mean, I'm the artistic director of a Shakespeare theater. I clearly love verse and the writing of poetry, and I think it's Poe's verse flows so easily that you often don't realize how complicated the verse structure is. So when you look at Raven, for example, which is in rhyming iambic octameter. So pentameter is Shakespeare, 5s. Now I'm in 8s, and I have an internal rhyme in the middle of it. Once upon a midnight dreary, as I wondered weekend weary, then I'm going to do that over and over. And I love, one of my favorites is rhyming lattice with what they're at is. That's a complicated. I wonder what they're at is. Maybe something at my lattice. And he does that kind of stuff over and over again. And it's really easy for that type of rhyme to sound very strained, very wrong. And it just flows from him like conversation. He does it with the Bells. He does it with Annabelle Lee over and over. Maybe we should end with things that people are going to hear. What they're going to hear Annabelle Lee. What else are they going to hear?
The Raven.
The Raven.
For Annie. which is it's a really fun, interesting, very layered, very lots of interpretations can be applied to that poem. Alone, which is one of my favorite poems from it, just describes who he is and how he sees himself in the world. You'll have.
Sorry.
Yep.
No, go ahead.
No. I'm sorry.
Jump in. My Mother. What are the pieces that you're other things that are in it that you like?
Cask of
The Bells, the
Amontillado.
Black Cat, the Cask of Amontillado, the Case of Monsieur Valdemar, which is grisly.
Yeah, I think audiences maybe. I'm going to guess that a lot of people know the Cask of Amontillado. I'm going to say most people know the Raven. I don't know how many people know is it the Strange Case of Monsieur Valdemar, the title, or the case of the Strange Case of Monsieur Valdemar? Wow, what a weird, macabre story where he hypnotizes somebody right before they die, so they don't die. They just stay in this hypnotized, weird state. Oh, it's so cool. It's
Don't
so
give it away.
strange and twisted. Don't give it away. Don't give it away. I didn't tell the end of it. I only told how we got there. It was just the setup. So anyway, we are at the end of our time. Thank you so much, Facebook watchers, being out there. Thank you, Mark, for writing a fabulous play. Thank you, Cynthia, for directing it. And thank you, Stephen, for being the guy that had to memorize all the lines this time. And we can't wait for you guys to watch it, to see it. If you have further questions watching it, because doing this in the middle of a pandemic in somebody's bedroom there are a lot of stories about how we put this together. Put questions on our Shakespeare, Orlando Shakes page, and we'll try to get around to answering them all. I'm sure we missed a bunch. I saw a couple pop up we didn't get to because we were in production, but we'll try to answer them all and enjoy Poe deep into that darkness peering. And I think that's it from us. Thank you so much.